Well, hello again everyone. Lloyd Kelly, Amazon published author and poet here, among other things. Today I'm here to share another story for you from my book called Poetic Justice Code. Poetic Justice Code, a collection of short stories and the poems of the times, now available on Amazon Kindle. Now, the story we want to do for you today is called The Message Is. Messages are coming from everyone else, but messaging as seen through my eyes and on the road as traveled in one lifetime. And it goes something like this. He remembers it well. As a young boy in grade school and hating the bell, for always ringing them back to class as a tool, while messing around with a bunch of other rowdy boys one day, and shunning the girls who wanted to play. You know them, those who always wanted to join in on boys' games of the day. But then again, he was to have noticed a conversation going on between the headmistress and her. Yes, the head tomboy, as it occurs. That's her there, in a blue uniform dress. Beware. One of the girls vying hardest to participate in boys' games, I guess. The conversation was to have continued on the inside too, when classes resumed minutes later than him and you. The headmistress wanted to use this little incident as a teaching tool. The young girl had gone in and had made a complaint to her about something which she said one of the boys had said to other fools. She was sure of it. Somehow, I couldn't shake the feeling that that boy of whom she spoke was none other than yours truly, sweet and kindly sunny old me, going up in smoke. The boy had said something which, in her view, was a forbidden thing that should not be said by anyone such as him and you, ever. Certainly not by boys their age and the clever. Luckily for him and us, and for all concerned, yes, go on and cuss if you want. But first and foremost, listen up and learn. Don't bother with that because, as it is current, Miss wasn't too far away from the happenings. In fact, she was close enough to have heard clearly everything like that which the boy had said to him and them, out of the open in his head to go around and spin. And rims? No. And although it might have sounded quite like that thing as was heard, popping into an inquisitive girl's earshot head, and in sync with her version of things, it wasn't what the girl thought she heard. Teachable moments like these weren't going to go unused with Miss Mayberry. So, Miss, as soon as she got the rowdy bunch settled down in class, like this, she ventured into telling boys what she had called a wartime story of sorts. Real or imagined, though, one is not sure to this day's inglorio. Did she make it up just like for the desired purpose? Possibly so. The battle was raging, she said, in boys' hearing while gazing at the chalkboard from where it was read, for their learning, right there in primary head. The captain needed help to forge ahead. He called for a young corporal, sent him off to go pass a message along to the marshals, or to the base as was the usual. Tell them, he said, tell them to send reinforcement. We are going to advance. However, by the time the message got to the marshals at the base, it said something quite different from that to their taste. Send 3 and 4 pence, it said, we are going to a dance. Needless to say, they would have lost that battle at once on the bay, or sometime later on that very day. Be sure to first get the message right and then deliver it the way you got it, the right way. This is the takeaway here, my dear. My next message for you from somewhere in the messaging world and a lesson anew was to come about not long afterward. Growing up in the 60s, 70s or 80s in small town Jamaica, you see, without the use of the telephone for most folks and me, messages traveled on legs above the knee, mostly on the legs of fast young runner boys like us, and yes, she, sometimes, via mail too, sometimes, or by way of the telegram man and the busted lines, but mostly on here, like Cleveland, Herald, Aston, you, Picnic boy, come here to me, my dear, or come here this minute, run go down a mass shopping, tell him say, etc. This is the norm of getting a child's attention and getting her or him into action and into useful service according to dad and mom. Whenever there are so many children in the home that the parent can't always remember who is who. And that was almost every home, every time for you. They'll just say, picnic, or hey, you boy, come here. Or at other times, they might be heard saying it this way, come here, as it would be better said in the Queen's most beautiful language school over there. Or go there, and the boys go half running bare-footed, bearing important messages for them and humming, as such Picnic did, most of which Picnic doesn't even understand most of the times, man. To the boys and us, they were like codes that grown-ups and the grown-ups alone could decipher, I'd supposed. But it gets the job done for the grown-ups every time on the nose. That's for sure. My next such message was to come about when a dear old family friend had died. Imagine it. Him and his family lives 2 township districts away from yours on the other hillside, just a gaze, a shout, and a half-loud earshot away from the blabbermouth of the day. The valley between those two is yet another town or village where one may stay to figure things out for you, always in a position to be able to eavesdrop on other people's conversations, or to be volunteering to share some of theirs in either direction. Quite conveniently situated they were to be a party to it, or to be meddling in everything there and therefore, which may or may not be as friendly a thing as it should have been, only depending on one unsettled matter, one unresolved family quarrel, or 2 or 3 maybe, not proper for my papa, and she, that baby, too tangled a web for the minds such as us too, like you and me, to have been able to understand in those times. Anyways, let's move along to better days, or worst. It so happened that the family friend died that night, as was the norm in those places, times, and the fields of corns. As soon as the breath was to leave the body warm and lying there, or when the in-house announcement was made ready for the flying clear, somebody was sent to fetch somebody else, one who always knows these things and nothing else, and who has got to have and give the last word off their tongue to them and you, to get it into the hearing aid of the family home to view. Whether or not she's a physician, and she never was one. The next move from there is to go and announce it abroad. Oh Lord, this is where the message gets to travel on the airtight head card. The announcer, usually the loudest of the loud motors in the village square or anywhere else in the townships over there. She is who gets to go spreading the news far and wide on the wings of the windy tide to go out and get it used. Send abroad now the news. Mark all dead, oh. That was what we heard floating in on the windy shore. Then comes the lull, low-tone chatter and whispers, the somber moments to pick up again all those drop jaws of theirs, mister, and to try to digest what was heard, and of course, some reflection too, on how the man had lived with them and you, before the tick-up buzz, which is to be the follow-through to most of them. And guess who? Yes, Aunt Sue. Now, on over to his house goes all walking shoe. This may last throughout the night and on through until way after the burial, weeks later even. As soon as the buzzing was to get started, though, little Billy Joe was heard to have chimed in soft and slow, like a late echoing partridge from the windy message of moments old cartridge, falling off the original call of his. "Ma's scolded, oh," he said, echoing what he had heard, or thought that he had heard, coming in upon the windy chord, to hit a note strumming upon their hearing aids. Grandfather was quick with the rebuking rebuttal, rebuking him and that one, pal. "No, don't say that, you hear me? A sign of respect for the dead body, you know, and the family, and towards the man who was his dear friend, not me." But then, moments later, the grandfather himself couldn't resist the temptation, sir, so it would have seemed. He couldn't suppress the urge, not in your dream. He was heard saying almost in a whisper, but mimicking grandson's timely mock minister. He was mimicking the first come, yeah, that call, coming in through the wall. "Ah, so old they do," whispered grandpa in the hall. In times like these, a laugh can be the greatest of remedies, and that's what that was meant to be. Did lighten up the moment somewhat, more or less like a hot fart coming in from somewhere nearby a hot, heavily meat-laden fork wood. The point here is this: the message was out and riding on the wind. By tomorrow this time, no matter where in the world the family and the friends of Marco may happen to be staying to shine, they would have known the story. The news would have reached home to them already. And you wonder how? Telegram. That would be how, perhaps. One of the more sophisticated means for doing so at the time. On top of word of mouth, yes, no lying about, of course. The telegram man too, he was a who is who around those parts, no doubt, but. Now, here's another message for you. The new Look Manly book is out. It's a book that Amazon Kindle is proud about. Proud to bring you the new Manly book. How to Train a Wild Puppy Dog Named Manly. Go take a look. Anyway, that's it for today. I thank you.